The Turkish Armed Forces Turkish, Türk Silahlı Kuvvetleri are the military forces of the Republic of Turkey. They consist of the Army, the Navy and the Air Force, the Gendarmerie and the Coast Guard, both of which have law enforcement and military functions, operate as components of the internal security forces in peacetime, and are subordinate to the Ministry of Interior. In wartime, they are subordinate to the Army and Navy. The President of Turkey is the military's overall head. The current Chief of the General Staff is General Hulusi Akar. The Chief of the General Staff is the Commander of the Armed Forces. In wartime, he acts as the Commander-in-Chief on behalf of the President of Turkey, who represents the Supreme Military Command of the TAF on behalf of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, commanding the armed forces and establishing the policies and programs related with the preparation for combat of personnel, intelligence, operations, organization, training and logistics services are the responsibilities of the General Staff. Furthermore, the General Staff coordinates the military relations of the TUF with NATO member states and other friendly nations. After becoming a member of NATO on 18 February 1952, Turkey initiated a comprehensive modernization program for its armed forces. The Turkish army sent troops to fight in Korea, where they played pivotal roles at some points. Towards the end of the 1980s, a second restructuring process was initiated. The Turkish armed forces participate in European Union battle groups under the control of the European Council, namely the Italian-Romanian-Turkish battle group. The TAF also contributes operational staff to the Eurocorps multinational army corps initiative of the EU and NATO. The Turkish armed forces collectively rank as the second largest standing military force in NATO, after the US armed forces, with an estimated strength in 2015 of 639,551 military, civilian and paramilitary personnel. Turkey is one of 5 NATO member states which are part of the nuclear sharing policy of the alliance, together with Belgium, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. A total of 90 B-61 nuclear bombs are hosted at the Incirlik Air Base, 40 of which are allocated for use by the Turkish Air Force in case of a nuclear conflict, but their use requires the approval of NATO. History: War of Independence. After the end of World War I, many Ottoman military personnel escaped from Rumelia to Anatolia in order to take part in the national movement. During the War of Independence, on 3 May 1920, Birinci Ferik Mustafa Fevzi Pasha was appointed the Minister of National Defense. Merliver İsmet Pasha was appointed the Minister of the Chief of General Staff of the Government of the Grand National Assembly. But on 3 August 1921, the GNA resigned İsmet Pasha from the Minister of National Defense because of his failure at Eskişehir, and on 5 August, just before the Battle of Sakarya, appointed the chairman of GNA Mustafa Kemal Pasha to the Commander-in-Chief of the Army of the GNA. Turkey won the War of Independence in 1922. World War II. Turkey remained neutral until the final stages of World War II. In the initial stage of World War II, Turkey signed a treaty of mutual assistance with Great Britain and France. But after the fall of France, the Turkish government tried to maintain an equal distance with both the Allies and the Axis, following Germany's occupation of the Balkan states, upon which the Axis became neighbors with Turkey and Thrace and the eastern islands of the Aegean Sea. Turkey signed a treaty of friendship and non-aggression with Germany on 18 June 1941. After the German-Soviet War broke out, the Turkish government sent a military delegation of observers under Lieutenant General Ali Fuat Erdoğan to the German Eastern Front and Germany. After the German retreat from the Caucasus, the Turkish government got closer with the Allies, and Winston Churchill secretly met with İsmet İnönü at the Yenice train station near Adana on 30 January 1943, with the intent of persuading Turkey to join the war on the side of the Allies. A few days before the start of Operation Citadel in July 1943, the Turkish government sent a military delegation under General Cemal Kayıt to Belgorod and observed the exercises of the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion and its equipment. But after the failure of Operation Citadel, the Turkish government participated in the Second Cairo Conference in December 1943, where Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill and Ismet İnönü reached an agreement on issues regarding Turkey's possible contribution to the Allies. On 23 February 1945, Turkey joined the Allies by declaring war against Germany and Japan. After it was announced at the Yalta Conference that only the states which were formally at war with Germany and Japan by 1 March 1945 would be admitted to the United Nations. Korean War. Turkey participated in the Korean War as a member state of the United Nations and sent the Turkish Brigade to South Korea, which suffered 731 losses in combat. On 18 February 1952, Turkey became a member of NATO. The Korean government donated a war memorial for the Turkish soldiers who fought and died in Korea. The Korean pagoda is in Ankara and it was donated in 1973 for the 50th anniversary of the Turkish Republic. Cyprus. On 20 July 1974, the TUF launched an amphibious and airborne assault operation on Cyprus. In response to the 1974 Cypriot coup d'état, which had been staged by EOKAB and the Cypriot National Guard against President Makarios III with the intention of annexing the island to Greece, but the military intervention ended up with Turkey occupying a considerable area on the northern part of Cyprus and helping to establish a local government of Turkish Cypriots there, which has thus far been recognized only by Turkey. The intervention came after more than a decade of intercommunal violence between the island's Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, resulting from the constitutional breakdown of 1963. Turkey invoked its role as a guarantor under the Treaty of Guarantee in justification for the military intervention. Turkish forces landed on the island in 2 waves, securing 37% of the island's territory in the northeast for the Turkish Cypriots, who had been isolated in small enclaves across the island prior to the military intervention. In the aftermath, the Turkish Cypriots declared a separate political entity in the form of the Turkish Federated State of Cyprus in 1975, and in 1983 made a unilateral declaration of independence as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which was recognized only by Turkey. The United Nations continues to recognize the sovereignty of the Republic of Cyprus according to the terms of its independence in 1960. The conflict continues to overshadow Turkish relations with Greece and with the European Union. In 2004, during the referendum for the Annan Plan for Cyprus, 76% of the Greek Cypriots rejected the proposal, while 65% of the Turkish Cypriots accepted it. PKK campaign. The TUF are in a protracted campaign against the PKK which has involved frequent forays into neighboring Iraq. During the 1980s and 1990s, many Kurdish rural communities were uprooted in an effort to limit the PKK's base of logistical support. These actions by the TUF had resulted by the mid-1990s in more than 3,000 Kurdish villages being deserted, while according to official figures 378,335 Kurdish people had been displaced and rendered homeless. War in Bosnia and Kosovo. Turkey contributed troops in several NATO-led peace forces in Bosnia and Kosovo. Currently there are 402 Turkish troops in Kosovo force. War in Afghanistan. After the 2003 Istanbul bombings were linked to al-Qaeda, Turkey deployed troops to Afghanistan to fight Taliban forces and al-Qaeda operatives, with the hopes of dismantling both groups. Turkey's responsibilities include providing security in Kabul, as well as in Wardak province, where it leads PRT Maiden Shah. Turkey was once the third largest contingent within the International Security Assistance Force. Turkey's troops are not engaged in combat operations, and Ankara has long resisted pressure from Washington to offer more combat troops. According to the Washington Post, in December 2009, after U.S. President Barack Obama announced he would deploy 30,000 more U.S. soldiers, and that Washington wants others to follow suit, Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan reacted with the message that Turkey would not contribute additional troops to Afghanistan. Turkey has already done what it can do by boosting its contingent of soldiers there to 1,750 from around 700 without being asked, said Erdogan, who stressed that Turkey would continue its training of Afghan security forces. Humanitarian relief. The TUF have performed disaster relief operations, as in the 1999 Izmit earthquake in the Marmara region of Turkey. Apart from contributing to NATO, the Turkish Navy also contributes to the Black Sea Naval Cooperation Task Group, which was created in early 2001 by Turkey, Bulgaria, Georgia, Romania, Russia and Ukraine for search and rescue and other humanitarian operations in the Black Sea.